The story of how the sugar industry manipulated science to protect its profits remains one of the most insidious examples of corporate misinformation that shaped public health policies and perceptions for decades. In the 1960s, as rates of heart disease began to rise dramatically in the United States, scientists, health authorities, and the media looked for a culprit. Mounting evidence suggested that excessive sugar intake, particularly from processed foods, was playing a major role in the development of heart disease. But instead of allowing that evidence to come to light, the sugar industry intervened behind the scenes with strategic funding, shaping the scientific narrative to deflect blame. Documents uncovered decades later revealed that the Sugar Research Foundation, now the Sugar Association, secretly paid prominent Harvard scientists to publish a highly influential review in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1967. That paper downplayed the link between sugar and coronary heart disease, while singling out saturated fat as the primary dietary villain. At the time, scientific journals did not require researchers to disclose conflicts of interest, so the public and even the broader scientific community had no idea the conclusions had been bought and paid for. This calculated distortion of the evidence successfully rewired dietary guidelines around the world. Governments, health organizations, and public schools began warning against fat while ignoring or even endorsing sugar-laden foods as part of a low-fat, healthy diet. As low-fat cookies, sweetened yogurts, and sugary breakfast cereals were marketed as heart-healthy alternatives, rates of obesity, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes climbed steadily. The sugar industry not only avoided regulatory scrutiny, it thrived under the new paradigm. Sales soared, and the real nutritional threat was hidden under decades of officially sanctioned confusion. What makes this episode so dangerous is not that it directly killed people in a dramatic fashion, but that it quietly reshaped the landscape of human health through misleading information and carefully curated science. Consumers were led to believe they were making healthier choices while unknowingly consuming massive quantities of sugar in disguised forms. At the same time, the medical community's understanding of dietary disease was sabotaged from within, delaying the recognition of sugar's true metabolic consequences for generations. Worse still, this manipulation was not an isolated error, it set a precedent. Once it became clear that science could be steered by money, other industries took note. From tobacco to seed oils to processed food additives, the tactic of funding favorable research and burying inconvenient findings became a blueprint for how to protect profits at the expense of public health. Even though no single life may have been directly and traceably ended by the 1960s sugar cover-up, the broader impact has been catastrophic. The normalization of high-sugar diets and the vilification of fats contributed to what can only be described as a public health disaster, a world in which nearly 1 in 3 adults is overweight or obese. Cardiovascular disease remains the leading cause of death globally, and type 2 diabetes has become a multi-billion-dollar chronic industry in itself. All of it was made possible, in part, by a simple lie repeated often enough to be accepted as truth. The sugar diversion story reminds us that misinformation doesn't have to be deadly in the moment to be profoundly harmful in the long run. It reveals how profit-driven agendas can distort science, alter public policy, and mislead entire populations, all while appearing to follow the rules. Most disturbing of all, it reveals that once scientific trust is sold off piece by piece, the truth becomes harder to recover than it ever was to lose.